Hey threadheads, Darren here. Welcome back to another fly tying tutorial. Today we're going to be tying a wet fly. This one's called the Peacock, and ideally we're going to be fishing this on stillwater lakes and ponds for trout. This one is from a tyer named Mark Olinger, and the Peacock, as he explains it, it stands for pheasant, peacock, pintail, and partridge. So you can see all those elements on the put together on the fly. There's also quite a number of variations that this particular pattern has spawned, and one of the other ones that I really like is one with a pine squirrel body rather than the peacock. So it still maintains that pequod name, but changes the look of the fly a little bit. So he explains that this is one of his most productive patterns. Don't forget to leave a comment down below so I can enter you into the next draw for decals and a set of flies. Let's have a look at the material list and get started. Alright, let's get started. We're going to put a fresh hook in the vise, and today I'm tying on a size 12, and this is a Mustad S82-3906B, and this is a 3 extra heavy and a 2 extra long hook. If you don't have the Mustad, use whatever you think's appropriate. It's a really nice hook for nymphs. I really like it. We're going to be using a 70 denier brown UTC. If you don't have brown, I believe the original recipe calls for black, which would be fine, or a reddish brown will be fine. Something that's going to kind of give you a dark natural color. We start by putting a base layer of thread onto the hook shank, and we'll just wrap that towards the back of the hook. Now we're going to take our first P, our pheasant tail. We're going to take a few fibers, somewhere between 10 and 8, I guess. And we're just going to pull those out away from the stem and pull them all off together. And this will help keep the tips lined up if you've got the bases lined up as well. We'll just measure that out about a hook shank length, and we'll tie that down. You just want to kind of make sure that as we bind down the fibers, I like to keep them on top just to prevent them from twisting. We'll cut those back a little bit away from the eye of the hook. Just want to kind of make sure that we keep everything sort of even along that body. Next, we're going to take in some gold UTC wire, and for this one, we're using the small size, or actually the Brassie size, rather. And we're just going to tie that on as we wind back. We'll leave a little bit at the end so we can fold back a tag, and that'll just really secure in that wire, and it's not going to pull out with a fish's tooth or a snag or anything like that. And we'll just tuck that wire away for later. Next, we're going to add our second P element, and that's a little bit of peacock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take anywhere between, say, 3 and 4 of these peacock herls and take them off. And we'll just kind of line those up at the base. We'll clip the tips, and I like to work from the base of the peacock because it's the strongest there. And as you wind towards the tips, they get more and more fragile. But if you're working with 3 or 4 pieces, it tends to really bulk that out nice. We just want to kind of stroke downwards on those fibers just so that the herl sticks out and it gives you a nice kind of a full body on your fly. And we'll just start wrapping that towards the front. And we just want to kind of, if you can push out those fibers a little bit as you wrap. With each time you wrap it, you kind of pin a few of them down, and some of them get bound down a little bit. So we'll trap those off just behind the eye. Just want to make sure that you keep a little bit of space there. We got to tie a wing in fold back the tips, make sure that they're really secure and they're not going to unwind unless they get broken here. Trim those. Next, we're going to wind through the gold wire that we've got. We want to wrap that in the opposite direction that we wound the Peacock, and that will kind of keep it secure. And if the Peacock does get damaged as we're fishing it, it's not going to all unravel. So we just want to make sure that we tie that down fairly securely, and make sure we get a couple wraps of thread over both the back side and the front side of that. And then you just pull that tight, and we'll give that a few wiggles and under tension, and then it should just break off, and then you got a nice clean break. You don't have to worry about any sharp parts on the fly. So next we're going to add our third P element, and that is Pintail. Now, full disclosure here, I don't have Pintail. I'm actually subbing out with a little bit of mallard flank here. So we're just going to take a small pinch off the stem of a nice long mallard feather. And we're going to put all that together. We want to try and keep the tips of the feather of those hackles all closely stacked as much as possible. You don't want them splaying out too much. We'll add a few wraps just to kind of get that in place. You just want it into the tail a little bit. You don't want it too long. And you can just make sure that that's centered on your hook shank. We'll trim off the butt ends there when we're happy with the placement of that wing. Next, we're going to add a collar or a hackle on here, and we're going to be using a little bit of Hungarian partridge, and I'm using one of the darker brown feathers off of a cape. Now, for the partridge, you can buy the packaged stuff if you have the money, and if you tie with quite a bit of partridge, I suggest getting a full skin for this so you can kind of pick and choose the feathers that you want to use. So I just prepared the feather by pulling the fluff off the bottom and pulling back the fibers, tied it in by the tip, and got everything splaying back. So we want the natural outside of the feather on the outside of our fly so that it kind of cups back. And we're just going to pull all those fibers back, and we're going to give that a wrap. We'll probably get about 2 turns of partridge hackle here, and we'll tie that off when we get around to the top of the fly. Now I don't mind wrapping that a little bit farther forward and kind of wrapping back over top of those fibers rather than just the stem. So you'll kind of secure the fibers in place there. Come off and trim off that extra stem piece here. So at this point the fly is pretty much done. We just need to kind of clean up that head just a little bit. There's a few errant fibers here and there. Just add a few thread wraps just to clean it up a little bit and make sure we have everything covered up. Looks pretty good. So grab my whip finish tool, and we're going to add a whip finish to the fly. And for this one, I like to use the bone dry for flies like this, just where they do have a little bit of a chance of that hackle coming unwound. I feel a little bit more secure with the bone dry here, so we'll just go ahead and add a quick coat of that. If you don't have bone dry, go ahead and use your usual head cement that you finish your flies with. So it looks like I might have got just a little bit of the bone dry in the eye of this hook, so I'm going to just show you really quickly. I'll just take a scrapped feather here. Just going to clean the fluff off the bottom here and just stick that through just to kind of clean up that extra material, just so that you don't have a clogged eye, because as soon as you hit that with the UV, it's really hard to get it out of there, especially with the UV materials. Same goes when you're using just a regular head cement, anything like that. It's a nice way to clean the head out. Hope you enjoyed that. Take this one fishing. Let me know how it works for you. Hey fly tiers, thanks for stopping by and checking out my fly tying videos. If you enjoyed the video and want to show your support, hit the thumbs up and share it to your social networks. I hope you consider subscribing to the channel, and if you do, be sure to hit the bell icon to get notifications on my latest fly patterns, tips, and reviews. If you have a question or comment, leave a message below. You'll also be entered into the next draw for some of the flies I tie and a few stickers. Until next time, this is Darren saying, keep a hook in your vise. Cheers.